All right, you know why you're here, so let's get into it. Basically, what I'm gonna be doing today is swapping a 3 terabyte hard drive for a 16 terabyte hard drive. I've chosen to go with this one. It's the Iron Wolf Pro 3.5 internal drive. Now, the crucial thing is that you're gonna wanna make sure you get all your files off of this drive onto something else. So I've got another storage system over here where I've backed up all these files onto this drive. Basically, I won't get into the details here. At the end of the video, we'll talk about it, but it's very important that you do that because when you remove this drive from this case here, you won't be able to read it in something like this. You really only need a few tools for this job. I've got a Phillips screwdriver. This is a standard size. I think it's otherwise known as number 2, but I can't read the writing anymore because it has been around for a while. We've got a very sharp knife here, and we've got some pliers. And then I've got this like screwdriver. It's like a flathead, but it's kind of just used for getting into places that I don't want to stick my finger if it's too small. So I can just kind of do some stuff with that, which is helpful. But other than that, it's really simple. This is the only tools you're gonna need. Basically, we're gonna use this for a little bit later on in the video. We're gonna be cutting some new tape. I've got some tape here. It's aluminum foil tape. This is like duct tape used for like, you know, heat exhaust and stuff like that. And the reason is that when I first did this, I actually ended up tearing this aluminum foil, which is basically used as like a kind of heat sink to remove heat from the board that's inside here, the hard drive, and dump it into the actual case itself. So you might need some of this unless you're way more careful than I was, because you need this. This is important. Obviously, this is a fully enclosed unit. There's no fan on this. The heat sink itself needs to be operational via something like this. I mean, yes, there's convection. You're probably going to get heat transfer that way and radiation from the hard drive, but this is going to make a huge difference in keeping your drive cool, and you don't want heat death for your drives. That's bad. So you may need some of this if you're not as careful as, or if you're more careful than I was. This tape is like 10 bucks Canadian, so you're really not going to have too much trouble finding it. Most hardware stores will sell it. Try to get thicker stuff. Obviously, the more depth you're gonna have is the better conductivity. This feels very similar in weight. It might be slightly less thick. This feels like a heavy duty aluminum foil. This feels like maybe a light duty aluminum foil. So just keep that in mind. But essentially, you might need some of this. So first things, grab your screwdriver, and you've got 3 screws in the back here, and we're gonna take each of those out. Take off the cover plate, the back here, set that aside. And you're gonna be pulling the front panel of this out of the inner case. All right, so now that you've got it free, let's set the case aside. On the back here, you can see we've got cable running through. We're just gonna remove this tape here, which holds that in place. We're gonna set that aside because we're gonna use it again later on. We've got 4 screws on each side here that we need to remove. We've got 1 additional screw right there. And we've got this heat sink tape that distributes heat away from this board, away from the hard drive itself here, and redistributes it into the case, which then of course connects with a screw to the actual case itself. And you can see it also connects onto the power adapter. So we've got to disattach a couple different things here. We also see we've got that cable that connected underneath there. We've got to remove that. So the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to set this down. We're going to use our needle nose pliers, and we're just going to gently grip the center of this connector, rock it back and forth, pulling up ever so gently, and it should come free without any trouble. I'm just going to remove that from there. All right, so now with this disconnected, we're going to be taking out this tape. So grab a corner of the tape, and if it's stuck down quite hard, just use your fingernail. Wouldn't recommend anything sharp. This can help. You've got a, it's a little point or something. You can kind of get underneath it to start it. It's very fragile, so be careful. You don't want to damage this. Obviously, if you make a significant cut like I did here, you're going to have to replace this tape. So again, we're going to use this, just kind of pull that away. It comes off really, really easy for me because I've done this before, but yeah, more on that at the end of the video. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the screw here. Set that aside. Very gently, I'm going to put this on its side, and I'm going to start to undo these screws here. Put that there. So now the hard drive's got 2 more screws, so we're just going to very carefully squeezing this so that it doesn't fall out. Rotate this over, place it on its side. Again, very carefully. You can see it's not balanced on this side, so I'm just, these rubber gaskets do hold things in place quite well. Okay, so we are free of the case. I'm gonna grip here and on the top of the hard drive. I'm not gonna put my fingers on any connectors or anything like that. Flip it over. And now I should be able to just rotate this away, gripping the side of the hard drive now, and we should be free. So there's the housing, and here's the hard drive. So the only thing that's kind of remaining attached is this aluminum foil tape. So I'm going to use my fingernail. I don't want to use any sharp objects or anything like that. There are some previous scratches on here. It wasn't me, I'm not sure why that's like that. And I'm just going to very carefully pull that off. See, I'm just ever so gently. I'm taking my time, kind of like inch at a time here. I want to use this as a template for the new tape that I'm going to be putting on here, so I don't want to damage this too much. I'm just ever so carefully pulling that off. Okay, so that's going to be my template for the new tape that I'm going to cut. And now, this being free from here, all this I'm doing is going to just kind of rock this out like this, and we're free. We still want to use this in the future, so I'm going to be setting this aside, and we'll be using that for something else. And the drive we're going to be replacing it with is a Seagate Iron Wolf Pro internal hard drive. This is the 16 terabyte version. And the first thing we're going to do to put this back together is we're going to be reattaching this board into the SATA connection, just rocking it slightly back and forth, making sure it's fully seated. And this is a good surface, so I'm just going to do one thing to kind of prevent anything from bending or any kind of connections. I'm just going to put that there, and then we're going to give this a very almost like as much as I can do with 3 fingers and no more, just so it's nice and fully seated. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be looking. I'm not going to put that down on that side actually. I'm going to be reapplying this tape, but I'm going to be using new tape. So I'm going to cut a template. We'll be right back. Okay, so now that we've got the rough shape of the foil cut out, we're looking pretty similar. We've got the rough shape. I might need to add a little bit to the end there. And we're going to take our hard drive and board. We're going to place tape where we saw it start here previously, just on that big copper patch there. So this is just acting as a heat sink pathway for the heat to travel away from this board. We want to get this on the hard drive so that we're not having it flex too much, so that it's not going to be tearing. It's really easy to tear this stuff. All right, so that's looking really good. I'm going to use my fingernail to kind of buff out any wrinkles. And yeah, it's feeling really, really good. And then I'm gonna just ever so gently place that on there. It's not in a perfect 90 degree, but that is okay. All right. So you see this doesn't quite fit the power coupling there, so I'm just gonna put that down and just kind of borrow a little bit of the old one here. Just kind of press those together. Okay, great. So now we've got the board attached to the hard drive, and we're ready for reinstall into the chassis. All right, so with all the screws in, this is taped down, and this is connected. We're just gonna connect the heatsink tape here, and we're just going to press that against. You can see that there. I'm just gonna take my finger and just kind of rub that in there like that, so that that's nice and connected. I'm gonna leave a little tiny top piece here. I'm just gonna fold that little bit over like that in case I ever want to come back here and take it out. And that looks really good. All right, so before we go back in, we're just going to take a look over our work, make sure everything is done. All the screws are back in. We've got everything taped. Everything looks really good. We haven't dropped anything. Everything's in a good state. So good to go. So grab your chassis and your housing. And what you're going to want to do is look for the side that has the kind of a bit of a chamfer on it. You can see that this is ready to accept this, obviously in the other orientation, but we don't want to put this in this way. So if you put it in this way, you're going to find out it's not going to go. But the other thing is that you're going to want to orientate this like fabric buffer here, and you're going to see that it's got that little rectangle there and a little rectangle there. You want those to meet up when you put them inside. So if I put it in like this, very carefully, slide that back in. And now that little fabric pad is going to line up with that same fabric pad. If you can see there, there's a little fabric pad. The fabric pad is in there. Obviously, if you put this in and this button was upside down, it's pretty apparent that you've done that wrong, because then this plate won't line up. So just kind of caught on the bumpers, so we're just gonna wiggle it in. There we go. All right, so final thing is to reattach the back plate. Very simple. Line that up, line up your screw holes. All right, and we are ready to power on. Hope this helps. And I made this video because I couldn't find any other videos on this, and I did this the first time, and this is the second time that I did it. And hope this is something that benefited you. Enjoy. Now, this is the second time that I've done this. So I did this once and I learned something pretty crucial. But basically what you're gonna wanna make sure you do before you start anything is get your files off of here onto another kind of hard drive. This is a G drive RAID system. Basically, you're gonna wanna make sure that you get all your files off of here onto something else and not this drive. It's very important that you don't try to put these files on this drive with something like this. It won't work in the end. And so I thought that I could take the files from this drive using one of these and put them directly like back onto here once this drive was installed. You can't do that. There's some sort of protocol for interfacing with this drive with the board that's inside here. You won't be able to do that. So make sure you get all the files off first before you start this process. If you don't, it just won't work. it just won't work. But if you do this, I know it takes a little bit longer. You're gonna have to go and put the files in here and wait. And for, you know, this is a slower drive, right? So it's gonna take a long time. I thought I could skip that step. Turns out you cannot skip that step. So make sure you get the files off.